speed. It's more than just movement. It's survival, resistance, maybe even a declaration. Because to be fast, truly fast, is to defy time itself. It's the difference between capture and escape, between being counted out and making history. For Black women, speed has never been just about winning races. It has been about outrunning expectations, dodging the limits set before them, and breaking the invisible tape that tries to hold them back. It's also about what happened on September 2nd, 1960, in Rome, Italy, for the 17th Olympiad, at the beginning of the women's 100-meter final. A little girl from Tennessee, who was told she might not ever walk again, is now here, lacing up her spikes for the world to see. It's also about the setting of the 100-meter semifinals at the U.S. Olympic Trials on July 16, 1988, in Indianapolis, Indiana, where a young woman with gold on her mind and determination in her heart is about to teach the world a brand new number that has since stood the test of time. Or maybe it's about August 31st, 2023, in Budapest, Hungary, the site of the women's 100-meter final at the World Championships. And it is here where we find a young sprinter whose story they tried to end before the race had even begun, only to remind the world she isn't simply just back, she's better. 3 women, 3 races, 3 moments where time bends to their will. But what does it take to move that fast? Not just in body, but in spirit. What does it mean to be so undeniable that history can't look away? In Black America, the answer has always been Black women, writing it in every starting block, every stride, and every finish line, proving greatness was always here. And it's about time the rest of the world caught up to them. We come from innovators, heroes, and royalty. We are our ancestors' greatest hope. We face many challenges, but we mold that adversity into our greatest strength. We are the glue that holds a nation together and allows it to flourish. Welcome to Black is America, the podcast that highlights little-known African-American figures and stories that make our history come to life. I'm your host, Dominic Lawson. Episode 2, Wilma, Florence, and Sha'Carri, American Women of Speed. Citius, Altius, Fortius. That's the Latin translation for faster, higher, stronger. It also serves as the official Olympic motto, a declaration of human potential, challenge to the limits of the body, the mind, and the will. And when we talk about the United States, when we ask who has embodied this, look no further than Black women. Because if America has a heartbeat, Black women have been the ones keeping it steady. From the days of the Revolution, when they cooked for, nursed, and even spied on behalf of the patriot cause, to the battlefields of World War II, where they weren't just fighting for democracy abroad, but dignity at home. They were building planes, welding ships, and ensuring that soldiers, all soldiers, received the words from home that kept them going. Look no further than the 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion. They sorted millions of backlogged letters and packages meant for troops in Europe. Their motto, no mail, low morale. And in 6 months, they did what the Army thought would take years, proving that when the mission seems impossible, you call Black women. Then, from the streets of Selma, where their feet blistered for freedom, to the hospitals of 2020, where their hands saved lives in a global pandemic. Let me be very clear. Black women have carried this country on their back, often without credit, often without rest, but never without impact. And when it comes to the Olympic Games, they don't just show up, they show out. In 2024, Black women accounted for 42% of all medals won by Team USA's women. That's nearly half. That's dominance. That is legacy. That same year, for the first time in history, 3 Black women stood together on the Olympic gymnastics podium. Rebecca Andrade, Simone Biles, and Jordan Childs didn't just flip, twist, and soar. They redefined who belongs in those golden moments. And then you head over to the Strip, where fencing takes place. And this is where Lauren Scruggs became the first Black American woman to earn an individual Olympic medal, proving that whether it's on the track or on the Strip, Black women make history wherever they compete. And when it comes to speed, that's where Black women make time bow down. And that's why we wanted to highlight 3 amazingly fast women across 3 different eras: Wilma Rudolph, Florence Griffith Joyner, and Sha'Carri Richardson. They epitomize the tenacity it takes to be a Black woman with talent. But in order to tell this very unique story, I can't do this on my own. I need a little help. Someone who could speak to the Black woman's experience on and off the track. And in this very unique conversation, I asked,
what does speed mean to you as it relates to being an athlete? Is it about winning races? Is it about something bigger? Is it about freedom? What does speed mean to Moushaumi?
I love that you said freedom. So I'm going to say that since you gave me some words, I'm going to use freedom to anchor that.
This is Moushaumi Robinson, educator and coach, and she is sharing what the idea of speed means to her.
Because when I watched the great Florence Griffith Joyner, and I was 7 years old, and I set a goal to win a gold medal.
You know what? My bad. I may have buried the lead just a little bit here. Let me fix that. This is my friend Moushaumi Robinson, educator and coach, and 2004 gold medalist from the Athens Olympics in the women's 4x400 relay. Now, Moushaumi is actually part of a current dynasty. The reason I say this is because from 1996 to the most previous Olympiad in 2024 in Paris, Team USA in the 4x400 has won the gold medal every single time. And when you consider the list of sprinters that have contributed to this dynasty, it is filled with Black woman excellence. Sonia Richards-Ross, Allison Felix, including 2 from the Paris Games who also came away with individual gold medals, Gabby Thomas and Sydney McLaughlin-Lavaroni. Listen, I remember the introductions for that race and seeing those 2 come out, and I was like, that's not even fair. Just escort them to the podium right now. Don't even bother running this race. And of course, they didn't disappoint, running the second fastest time in the history of that race, which means in this event, Team USA, or more specifically, Black women, may have cornered the market for years to come. So with Moushaumi, we are in good hands for this episode. And getting back to her, she explains why Florence Griffith Joyner's speed made an impact on her.
It was the use of her speed and me seeing someone that looked like me that was free. And so I can say now, man, like you using that word, like even in this moment, I can say now at my big old age, you using freedom is the word that and the feeling I felt that made me run upstairs to say, I'm going to win me, you, and Dad, Mom, an Olympic gold medal. It was freedom. And I've talked about that medal. I talked about my experience, and brother, like to hear you give words. And I know you just kind of were throwing out some words, but man, that was it. That was freedom. Like as a 7-year-old sitting crisscross applesauce in Columbus, Ohio. And I always told people it was a representation, but it was the freedom. It was the sense of seeing my representation, seeing me free to be beautiful. Hair was flowing in the wind. Nails were nice. Free to be advanced and winning and be celebrated and be first and be celebrated. Yeah, it was freedom.
Wait a minute. Let's run that last part back one more time.
And be first and be celebrated.
That's it, isn't it? Not the first part. We're fully aware of the excellence Black women come to the table with. It's well documented. Most educated in the United States, Black women. Fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the United States, Black women. And if you stay in the business realm, according to a Wells Fargo report, which group of small business owners saw the largest jump in revenue from 2019 to 2023, outpacing women-owned businesses overall? If your answer isn't Black women, you're incorrect. Not to mention the steady growth of political power when you look at the 117th Congress having the most Black women to serve in the Congress since surpassing the previous number of the 116th Congress. Which reminds me, keep doing your thing, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We see you out there, sis. And let us not forget their voting power, recently getting 92% on the recent group project. Oh yeah, I went there. So we all know Black women have the answers to the test. But honestly, it's that second part.
And be celebrated.
And it is here where the ball often gets dropped. So I wanted Moushaumi to elaborate on that part of that statement, because I think it sets the tone of this latest edition of Black is America.
And you know what's crazy? Like, I just said that. And what's crazy, when I set that goal, I didn't understand that intrinsically. I didn't have that type of introspection at 7. The spirit caught the freedom. But clearly, I had experienced enough at 7, though, to make me want to see that, be ignited, and say, I want to go do it. I want to go do that. And that's dope. And now that I'm well into my, older years and, mature, it's like I said it because that's for real. It's the first always, but the celebration is you got to find those are far and few between. It's the first always, but the celebrations are non-existent. It's the first always, but the celebrations are with the parties that are comfortable with publicly celebrating them. It's first always. And the celebration comes as long as we've pinpointed all the other people who were a part of that first, as opposed to me just standing in it by myself and having that moment of glory alone and being honored in my first as a Black woman. And then I tell you everything else that was attached to it, that was the team that got to the first. So yeah, it was seeing her be first and be celebrated. That was the freedom and the sense of freedom that my little young spirit felt. That was like, I want to go get one of those.
Moushaumi touched on something real. Black women's victories often come with footnotes. Their greatness questioned while others simply exist in their moment. And yet, they still show up, still win, and still set the standard. And speaking of setting the standard, let's talk about the fastest women ever, Wilma Rudolph, Florence Griffith Joyner, and Sha'Carri Richardson. But where do we start? Instead of just choosing who gets to go first, allow us to let history decide with a time-traveling, stack-comparing, legacy-defining race. Picture it. Wilma, Flo Jo, and Sha'Carri stepping onto the track together. No crowd, just a quiet race among icons. And the winner? That's who we'll talk about first. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey, Dominic, how in the world are you going to pull this off? Simple. I've got the receipts. Olympic goals, world records, cultural impact, personal best times, all the things. And we'll make it official by running a 10,000 race simulation. So, let's hit the track. When you mark, get set. Now, for this episode, we're going to be doing a lot of time traveling here. And my mom taught me at a very early age that you should never leave the house without any money. And I think a lot of Black households actually have that same rule. So I need to make a stop at the bank. There's a branch right over there. So we find ourselves in Los Angeles, California in the early 1980s. And just like walking in any other bank, you see what you normally see. Tellers, clerks, loan officers, just a normal day. But behind one of those windows, behind the counter, sits Florence Griffith. Not in a sleek one-legged race suit, not with the starter pistol in the air, but here wearing a bank uniform, counting out money and helping customers. Why, you ask? Well, because unfortunately, talent doesn't always pay the bills. It's a sentiment Black women know very well.
The Black woman that works 2 and 3 jobs because there's a basketball game that her son has to get to that
Right.
she can't make it to, but she's sending some gas money to go with Trey's mom and dad and some snacks, right? Because she still has to stay back home. And then there's the mom that's sacrificing walking from the bus stop to ensure that she meets her kid at wherever daycare they need to be at so they can get back to the bus with extra Listen, it's some moms that are willing to sacrifice. It's women, Black women, mothers, aunties, neighbors, community leaders who are every day sacrificing.
Now, Florence wasn't a mother just yet, but she understood sacrifice. She had already left college once because money was a bit tight. So she took this job because she had responsibilities and they couldn't wait for the world to recognize her brilliance. But here's the thing about Florence, though. She may have sacrificed, but she didn't stop. That same drive, hustle, and mentality that made her work long hours was the same drive that made her hit the track after her shifts. Still training, still pushing, still chasing something bigger than paychecks and pension plans. Now, her coach, Bob Kersey, he wasn't about to let the fastest woman he'd ever coached fade into the background of a 9-to-5 job. See, Uncle Bob had already seen her greatness once, back when she ran for him at Cal State Northridge, before financial hardships pulled her away. He knew that if he got her back on the track, the world wouldn't just see her. They wouldn't be able to look away. So he helped her secure financial aid, and she transferred to UCLA, came back to the track, and pretty soon, Florence wasn't going to be just counting money. Her own, that is. No. TT was about to be counting medals. But who was Florence before she became Flo Jo? Born on December 21st, 1959, Florence Dolores Griffith grew up in Watts, Los Angeles, the 7th of 11 children. That means dinner went fast, clothes was handed down, and if you wanted something, you had to work for it. And her speed, well, that showed up pretty early. At just 7 years old, she started running competitively in track meets held by the Sha'Carri Robinson Youth Foundation. I was actually able to find a copy of the Los Angeles Times from Friday, August 16, 1974, with an announcement of the Sha'Carri Robinson Games, and there, in the bottom left corner, is a picture of a 14-year-old Florence Griffith. There's a blog post on the website www.blackasamericapodcast.com if you want to see it. And speaking of 14, she had already won the Jesse Owens National Youth Games twice. And it was early on that Auntie knew this was the sport for her. But hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Here she is on the show Sports Interview with Ann Liguri, answering how she knew track and field was the right sport for her.
When I was young, when I first started, because I had so much fun, and it didn't matter to me if I won or lost, I was still happy. And the kids would say, "Why are you still happy and you lost?" I go, "Well, next time I'm going to try harder. I know I can do it." And I always look forward to the next race, the next competition.
Florence, your mother raised.
And in high school, it was clear. She wasn't just fast. TT was different. Florence ran like she had somewhere to be, like there was something she was chasing that no one else could see. But talent alone doesn't open doors. And that's where Uncle Bob Kersey comes in. See, Kersey was a coach who didn't just find talent. My man built champions. And if you don't believe me, his formula, it still works today. Look no further than his latest pupil, Sydney McLaughlin-Lafaroni. But back in the late 70s, he recruited Florence to Cal State University, Northridge, where she was part of a championship-winning track team. But financial struggles forced her to drop out, like we said before, sending her to that bank job. But Kersey, he refused to let her fade into the background. And with his help, Florence got financial aid, transferred to UCLA, and within a few years, she was an NCAA champion in the 200 meters and the 400 meters. And from there, she was off to the 1984 Olympics. And talk about home cooking, the 84 Olympics were in her backyard of Los Angeles. She took silver in the 200 meters. The world noticed. My guy Al Joyner noticed too, but obviously for different reasons. And with that being said, he would eventually marry Auntie Florence in 1987, but we'll get to that later. But for now, winning that silver medal, I guess, didn't seem like enough for Auntie Florence. So after the 84 Olympics, Florence thought maybe there was more inside of her. Maybe there was more she could accomplish. After 1984, Florence's star was rising. She didn't have to work at the bank anymore due to sponsorship money she was bringing in. And this allowed her to fully focus on her training. And unbeknownst to us, she was about to show us something the world had never seen before, setting the table for someone else 37 years later. It's June 22nd, 2021 in Eugene, Oregon, site of the women's 100-meter final at the U.S. Olympic trials. This race determines who will land a spot on the U.S. national team and represent the United States in the 32nd Olympiad in Tokyo, Japan. And in under 11 seconds, a new American star was born.
Women's 100 is underway. JVN Oliver, a fantastic start. She's putting the pressure on Richardson. Here comes Sha'Carri. Richardson's going to Tokyo, 10:87.
The world was ready. The stage was set. Team USA had found its new sprinting sensation, Sha'Carri Richardson. With her fiery hair, long nails, and electrifying speed, she instantly drew comparisons to Florence Griffith Joyner. She wasn't just a runner. She was a beacon of hope to reclaim the 100 meters from the Jamaicans, America's fiercest track rival. But just as fast as a star can rise, it can also fade. Because days later, on July 1st, this happened.
U.S. sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson will not compete in at least one event at the Olympic Games. The standout runner tested positive for cannabis at the U.S. Olympic trials in June. She admitted to using marijuana after the death of her mother, which was just before the race. Richardson accepted a
social media erupted. Traditional media dissected every detail. Critics and supporters alike voiced their opinions.
It is a trivial conversation about the legalization of weed in America and in sports. We'll get to that. But the point is, I'm sorry, you knew the rules, you broke them, you got to deal with the consequences.
And to Sha'Carri's credit, she owned up to it and did not shy away from it. Because the very next morning on July 2nd, she was right there on NBC's Today Show speaking with Savannah Guthrie.
I want to take responsibility for my actions. I know what I did. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm allowed not to do, and I still made that decision. But
who is Sha'Carri Richardson, and how did we get here? Born March 25th, 2000 in Dallas, Texas, Sha'Carri was raised by her grandmother and aunt from a young age. She exhibited a natural affinity for speed, often racing neighborhood kids and leaving them in the dust. At Carter High School, Sha'Carri's talent blossomed. She clinched not one, not two, but 3 Texas state titles, earning her the #1 ranking among sprinters in the class of 2018. And I don't need to remind you that in the state of Texas, even outside of football, sports is highly competitive at that level. Her performances weren't just victories. They were displays of dominance. And even in high school, you could hear the confidence she had. Courtesy of WFAA Dallas is the young Sha'Carri as a senior, speaking about her mindset on the track.
Honestly, how we handle it, we apply the pressure that's applied to us, we use it and we grow from it. When we run, when we compete, we make sure that everyone that's against us, they feel us when it's time to perform on the track. And when we come home with state medals and state titles. And
listen, Niecy said if you step on this track, you're about to get this work. But to be good at track and field, you have to have a bit of an ego, a bit of swag. And when she took her talents to Louisiana State University, or LSU, it was a new uniform with the same result. In 2019, she shattered records at the NCAA Division I Outdoor Championships, clocking 10.75 seconds in the 100 meters and 22.17 seconds at the 200 meters. Both of them are world under 20 records. She would leave LSU in 2019, turning pro and signing with Nike. And at this point, Sha'Carri's momentum was unstoppable until 2021. The suspension was a setback, but not a defeat. Sha'Carri acknowledged her actions, explaining she used marijuana to cope with the recent death of her biological mother. Sha'Carri Richardson's journey is a story of triumphs and trials, reflecting on the complexities of modern athletics. But as a Black woman and a track star, the blueprint to make it out on the other side of this adversity was already created for her 75 years before. It is here sometime in 1944, in the heart of Clarksville, Tennessee. A young girl and her mother sit anxiously in a sterile examination room. And when the doctor enters, his expression is grave. He shares with Blanche Rudolph that her daughter, Wilma, due to the complications of scarlet fever and double pneumonia, has polio. And he's afraid to share with her that Wilma may not walk again. For many, such news would be devastating, but not for Blanche Rudolph. She refused to accept this fate for her daughter. And I imagine she probably told him something along the lines of, "Doctor, with all due respect, my baby will walk again." And it's from there Blanche devised a rigorous plan.
I can think about, the wonderful sisters and brothers that I had that each time a different one went with my mother or my aunt that took me to the hospital so that they in turn could learn how to give me the exercises and the massages also.
That was Wilma Rudolph herself on the program Black Champions. She is describing the plan that was executed that Blanche crafted.
So it really became a household ritual. Everybody in the house sort of pitched in and made sure that I got everything that I needed.
Born prematurely on June 23, 1940, in St. Bethlehem, Tennessee, Wilma Glodine Rudolph weighed just 4.5 pounds. She faced numerous health challenges like we mentioned before. Now, Clarksville, her hometown, was deeply segregated as a community. Opportunities for African-American children were limited. But the Rudolph family was tight-knit and resilient. Wilma's father, Ed, worked as a porter and a handyman, while her mother, Blanche, was a domestic worker. Together, they instilled values of hard work and determination in their children. And by age 11, Blanche's plan worked because Wilma would shed that leg brace, and she would soon discover the sport of basketball, playing for the team at Burt High School. Her speed and agility on the court were undeniable, earning her the nickname Skeeter because she kind of moved like a mosquito all over the court, and her legs were really long because Wilma will actually grow to be 6 feet tall. But Wilma describes how she made the transition from basketball to track.
And I was actually discovered for track and field on the basketball court because my referee of all of my high school games was the world famous track coach Edward Temple at Tennessee State. So he discovered me very young.
Coach Ed Temple, the track and field coach at Tennessee State University, noticed her remarkable athleticism. He saw potential beyond the basketball court and invited her to join his summer track program. Under Temple's mentorship, Wilma's talent for sprinting flourished. She joined the TSU Tiger Bells, a dominant force in women's track and field. Despite only being 16, her dedication and natural ability set her apart. And from there, in 1956, Wilma competed in the U.S. Olympic track and field trials in Seattle, Washington. Her performance earned her a spot on the 4x100 meter relay team in Melbourne, Australia for the Olympics, thereby making her the youngest member of the U.S. track and field team at just 16 years old. And at the Melbourne Games, Wilma and her teammates, Isabel Daniels, Mae Fax, and Margaret Matthews competed fiercely in the 4x100. Their efforts culminated in winning a bronze medal. Wilma talks about one of the personal reasons she was happy to get a bronze medal.
I was excited. All those kids that wouldn't play with me, I had something to show when I got back. All the ones that teased me when I wore a brace, I used to think, my goodness, now I have something to show for my own accomplishment. When I get back, all those kids that wouldn't play with me are going to be very sorry. Of course, I forgot that as quickly as I returned to my school, but all of those years, that was the motivation behind me, was because of those leg braces.
And this would mark the beginning of a historic Olympic journey. Wait, do y'all hear that? If I didn't know any better, that sounds like a tennis match? Wait, what year is this? 1956. Oh, I think I know what that is. I mean, we are close enough to the year. So I tell you what, let's take a break from the track for a bit because it looks like we have a tennis match to go to. And let's book our flight for 1957, London. It's July 6, 1957, at the prestigious Wimbledon Stadium in London, Centre Court. I hope you brought a cool drink with you because it's a blistering 89 degrees, but it's more like 100 on the court. The atmosphere here is electric, and spectators have gathered to watch the women's final. And facing off are two Americans, Darlene Hard, and African-American player Althea Gibson. Here's Peter Wilson of the BBC giving his commentary.
Miss Gibson not only plays the typical American game also, but plays it better than anyone we've seen this year. She's always on the attack, always racing round the court. Beautiful athletic figure, 15. And she covers the court with astonishing speed.
Born August 25th, 1927 in Silver, South Carolina, Althea Gibson's early life was marked by resilience. Her family moved to Harlem in New York City, where a young Althea discovered her passion for sports, particularly paddle tennis. And by 1939, she had won the New York City Women's Paddle Tennis Championship. This victory paved the way for her transition to lawn tennis, a sport dominated by racial segregation at the time. Gibson's prowess on the court couldn't be ignored. See, until 1950, people of color could not be ranked on the world circuit. Well, that changed just in time because TT Thea wasted no time putting in that work. That same year, she became the first African American to compete in the U.S. National Championships. Her relentless drive led her to international competitions, including 1956, when she won the French Open, becoming the first black player to win a Grand Slam title. Which brings us to this year's Wimbledon tournament under the watchful eyes of spectators, including Queen Elizabeth II. TT Thea is dominating this match against Darlene Hard, and it looks like we're at match point. Take it away, Peter.
5-2, 40 love, and about 50 minutes play. And that's it. Game, set, and match to Miss Gibson.
Gibson easily wins this match in straight sets, 6-3, 6-2. This victory not only earned her the Wimbledon singles title, but also cemented her status as a trailblazer in the world of tennis. And when you win at Wimbledon, you are presented a trophy by royalty.
And now here comes Her Majesty the Queen to present the prize to the winner and to the runner-up.
Althea couldn't help but reflect on her journey. From the streets of Harlem to the manicured lawns of Wimbledon, being presented a trophy by the Queen herself. She later remarked, quote, "Shaking hands with the Queen of England was a long way from being forced to sit at the colored section of the bus going to downtown Wilmington, North Carolina." Gibson's triumph at Wimbledon was more than just a personal victory. It was a monumental step for black athletes in sports traditionally reserved for whites. Her success paved the way for future generations of black tennis stars, including Arthur Ashe, Venus and Serena Williams, Coco Gauff, and many others who would continue to inspire and redefine the sport. And as we leave the grass of Wimbledon, we need to get back to the track and check on a young sprinter who has found herself in the middle of controversy as she battles not just for redemption, but for respect. In July of 2021, the track world braced itself for a thrilling Olympic showdown. Team USA was set to go head-to-head with Jamaica's sprint dynasty. The woman leading the charge, Sha'Carri Richardson, she wasn't just America's best hope for the 100-meter gold. She was a cultural phenomenon. But then everything changed with her suspension, and the backlash was immediate. Some defended her, calling the rule outdated. Others criticized, saying she had thrown away her opportunity. But one thing was clear. Black women, once again, were being held to impossible standards, not necessarily the rules she violated. That part was clear and was acknowledged by Sha'Carri herself, but more like the court of public opinion. No, Sha'Carri's suspension wasn't just about track and field. It felt like it was about something bigger. It felt like it was about who gets grace and who doesn't. But more specifically, as it relates to Black women in an ongoing conversation, it was about who gets protected and who gets discarded. And when we talk about protecting Black women, we're not just talking about sports, are we? We're talking about Sandra Bland. We're talking about Breonna Taylor. Two Black women whose names became rallying cries, not because they won races, because they weren't protected when it mattered most.
Let's not start persecuting someone because I couldn't do it and couldn't do what she did. And again, I just talk about that village. I talk about that covering. I talk about that protection. First of all, she is without sin cast the first stone. Sinners.
Right.
So I just threw a stone and broke out everybody's glass house. Please cut it out. How dare we persecute a Sha'Carri and believe that young people think that they can go be great, because now I can only be perfect. And it's not about promoting drug use. It's about allowing and knowing that people can make mistakes and we're going to make mistakes. But how do we acknowledge them, hold ourselves accountable, get back up, and what's our messaging after that mistake? What is the change behavior? But the people wanted to get on the bandwagon and persecute, because again, it was just an idea that this might enhance performance. Ain't nobody talking about that, because the world knew that she was going to do what she did. So no one's like enhanced performance. Stop it. She is a beautiful light being. She is a pure gem. She is a warrior princess. And what God allowed for us to see, people can make mistakes according to the world. But even the kids know, okay, well, one, she was in Oregon, so she definitely didn't do anything illegal. And the kids probably let them know, I doubt it enhanced the performance. She was going to beat them anyway. So like common sense and rationality is going to happen. So it only makes you look at the people and ask, well, why so much disdain for such a beautiful, gorgeous, elegant, articulate Black girl, Black young woman? Why so much disdain? Is it because she's beautiful? It's because she's not your safe Black woman. She might say something off the cuffs. Oh, wait, she might say what she feel. Yeah, she's absolutely going to say what she feels. And she better not stop saying what she feels, because everything in her is so genuine, so real, so pure. It ignites the soul through the screen. Who doesn't want to have that? What child doesn't want to see that? What man doesn't want to be inspired by that? Black, green, purple, or blue. I don't doubt Sha'Carri can inspire a dog if he was sitting in front of her and watch the commercial. It's the energy that illuminates off of her, right? And so all we're going to do is celebrate that.
Moushaumi Robinson, a fellow sprinter, called it what it was, a public crucifixion. For Sha'Carri, this was no longer about a race. This was about how Black women are expected to be flawless, just to be accepted. And how, at first sign of imperfection, the world is quick to turn its back. But here's the thing about Black women, though. They don't stay down. Look, Sha'Carri took time away from the spotlight. She reevaluated. She trained harder. She said in a People magazine interview, quote, "The entire situation taught me to look into myself and see that I have to be grounded, because you see how fast they flip." But she sought guidance from Dennis Mitchell, a former gold medalist who helped her refine her starting technique and mental approach to the sport. Her workouts became more disciplined. She focused more on speed endurance, ensuring she wouldn't fade in the final 20 meters of a race. And most importantly, she worked on blocking out the noise. But comeback stories don't happen overnight. Because in 2022, Sha'Carri struggled to find her form because at the Prefontaine Classic, she finished in last place. In the U.S. Championships, she failed to qualify for the World Championships. And the critics, they returned. The same people who cheered for her were now calling her washed up. Sha'Carri's journey wasn't about erasing what happened. It's about what she would do next. And when she entered the 2023 track season, she knew one thing. This time, she wasn't just running for herself. She was running for every black woman who had been counted out. And just like many black women, Niecy just wants to be seen. She said so as much in a Teen Vogue magazine interview. Quote, "It almost seems like we have to be superheroes. It's just irritating because you take away the abilities, take away the speed, take away the talent, and we're still just human." And speaking of someone who knows what it's like to be counted out, Wilma Rudolph has come a long way from being told she may not ever walk again to winning a bronze medal at the 4x100 meter relay race in the 1956 Olympic Games as a 16-year-old. That bronze medal was just the beginning of a journey of greatness. After her return from Melbourne, Wilma Rudolph enrolled at Tennessee State University in 1958, joining the renowned Tiger Bell track team under legendary coach Ed Temple. This period was pivotal as she transitioned from a promising high school athlete to a dominant force at collegiate track and field. In 1959 at the Pan American Games in Chicago, Rudolph showcased her speed and talent by securing a silver medal in the 100-meter dash and a gold in the 4x100 meter relay race. Her dominance continued on the national stage, where she clinched the AAU title in the 200 meters in 1959 and successfully defended it for the next 3 years. Additionally, she would amass 3 AAU indoor titles, solidifying her reputation as a premier sprinter. And in 1960, the dominance continues. At the U.S. Olympic Track and Field Trials in Abilene Christian University in Texas, she set a new world record in the 200-meter dash, a record that would stand for 8 years. This achievement not only secured her spot in the Rome Olympics, but also established her as a favorite in the upcoming games. Wilma's path to greatness wasn't just about speed, it was about resilience. As a black woman in the segregated South, she faced barriers both on and off the track, embodying a broader fight for civil rights.
Once a black woman wins an Olympic gold medal, you're not about to tell us nothing about this society that don't line up for the good of humanity for all. You're not about to make it make sense. I don't care about your tax things. I don't want to see your document. You're not about to prove to me where your disenfranchisement, where your degradation of any part of humanity in this good United States makes any sense at all. No, absolutely not. Because if the black woman has survived, has allowed our men to sustain as much as possible, has cared for the children and the community, and we can still show with smiles on our faces and show up excellently and not disenfranchise others, I am not understanding. I'm not about to. I don't want to see your spreadsheet or your portfolio.
And at 18, Wilma became a mom to her daughter, Yolanda. Balancing both motherhood and the Olympic dreams, she drew strength from her own upbringing, one shaped by faith, family, and sheer determination. But black motherhood sometimes is misrepresented, particularly referring to the myth of the black welfare queen, the idea of black women as moms misusing and misappropriating public assistance. But despite those harmful stereotypes, the truth contradicts it. Through every challenge, black mothers like Blanche, like Wilma, continue to push forward, shaping history one step at a time. And as the 1960 Rome Olympics approached, Wilma's rigorous training regimen intensified. Under Coach Ed Temple's guidance, she honed her skills, focusing on improving her speed, technique, and endurance. Her dedication was evident, and expectations were high. When we last left Florence Griffith, she sprinted her way to a silver medal in the 200 meters at the Olympic Games in 1984, behind teammate Valerie Briscoe Hooks. While her performance was stellar, it was her vibrant style that captured global attention. Florence seamlessly blended speed with style, making a mark on the track and in pop culture. Auntie Florence spoke on it with Ann Liguri.
Thank you. Well, I don't believe you have to look masculine in order to compete in a sport they consider rough. And track and field is a beautiful sport. And I just wanted to bring in my personality and the clothes that I wear off the track onto the track, just to be myself. And fashion designing has been my life since I was a young child.
It was something to really...
Following the 84 Games, Florence faced a period of introspection. Despite her success, she felt like there was more to achieve, more to accomplish. In 1987, she married Al Joyner. We mentioned him in the last time we talked about Florence. He was the 1984 triple jump champion and the brother to heptathlon legend Jackie Joyner-Kersee. This union not only enriched her personal life, but rejuvenated her athletic ambitions. So Florence Griffith, well, I guess we can now call her Flo Jo, intensified her training regimen. She collaborated closely with her husband, Al, and Coach Bob Kersee, focusing on enhancing her speed and endurance. This period also marked a significant shift in her professional life. Parallel to her training, Flo Jo's fashion evolved, becoming bolder, more avant-garde, if you will. She introduced the one-legger suit, a design featuring one leg covered and the other bare, paired with her signature flamboyant nails. These choices were more than just aesthetics. They were statements challenging the conventional expectation of how female athletes, particularly Black women, should present themselves.
I was in the basement watching the 88 Olympics. I wasn't writing about track. I wasn't dreaming about it. I didn't even know anything about it. They didn't even run track after I said I was going to do it, right? My parents didn't even go sign me up right away. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, I'm watching the Olympics and I saw this woman and I was already active, but I'm like, man, she's fast. That's Flo Jo. And so it's all this fanfare. But whenever I don't know, I'm like, it's America and we're great. And the brown skin girl, and she has nails. So already I don't have to be a boy. I can be me. I can be me. So it allowed me to still hold on to my femininity, you know, at 7 and not feel like I had to be a boy to be great. So I think seeing her hair, seeing her outfit, seeing the nails, hearing the crowd, hearing the commentators cheer on, seeing her with USA on, meaning I don't even have to be anywhere else. I don't know anywhere else. This is where I'm from. That looks cool. And I'm going to go do that.
Black women had often been marginalized by expressing themselves boldly, labeled as, quote, loud or ostentatious. Flo Jo confronted these stereotypes head on, illustrating that athleticism and femininity are not mutually exclusive, but can harmoniously coexist. And as Flo Jo was redefining what it meant and looked like to be a female athlete, other Black women in the 1980s were similarly shattering norms and breaking barriers across various fields. Their contributions not only challenged prevailing stereotypes, but also paved the way for future generations. For example, in 1984, The Cosby Show introduced audiences to Claire Huxtable, portrayed by Phylicia Rashad. Claire was a poised, articulate attorney who seamlessly balanced her demanding career with the joys and challenges of raising 5 children. Her character defied the prevalent stereotypes of Black women on television, offering a narrative that celebrated both professional achievement and dedicated motherhood. This portrayal marked a significant departure from earlier, often limited representations, providing viewers with a multifaceted, empowering image of Black womanhood. These pioneering women, like Phylicia Rashad and others, alongside Flo Jo, redefined societal expectations and showcased the diversity and depth of Black women's experiences and capabilities during the 1980s. As the 1988 season approached, Florence Griffith Joyner had been building towards this moment, training harder, running faster, sharpening every edge of her talent until there was no more room for doubt. And yet, this wasn't just about speed, it was about presence. Whispers of Flo Jo's remarkable transformation began to circulate. Her times were dropping, her confidence was soaring, and her style remained as captivating as ever. The world was on the brink of witnessing a performance that would redefine speed and style in women athletics. And that brings us to the three races we mentioned at the top of this show. Three defining moments that solidified their legacies, not just for themselves, but for everyone who ever had questions, whoever had doubts about who these women were and what they could do. For each of them, this was the race that cemented them in history. Three black women, three different races, three different eras, and yet their stories, woven together, form a singular truth. Black women run toward greatness, even though the world tells them to slow down. When we met Wilma Rudolph, the girl from Tennessee who was told she'd never walk again, we saw her fight through polio, through segregation, through doubt. We saw her defy it all. As a 16-year-old, she left Melbourne with the Olympic bronze medal, but her mission was far from over. When we met Florence Griffith Joyner, the woman who went from working in a bank to becoming a global icon, we saw her sprint to an Olympic silver medal in Los Angeles, redefining what it meant to be bold, fast, and feminine, refusing to be placed into a box. We saw her find love, reinvent herself, and set the stage for a season that would change history. And then there's Sha'Carri Richardson, the girl with the flame-colored hair and unapologetic confidence. The world saw her rise and then fall. We saw her miss out on the Olympics, endure public criticism, and struggle to find her form. But we also saw her learn, grow, and rise to the occasion. Now, they each stand at the starting line of their biggest race yet. Three moments in time, three black women, three different battles. But in a matter of seconds, each of them would prove, without question, that they belong to history. Rome, 1960, 100-meter final, lane 3. Wilma Rudolph, now 20 years old, had already dominated the heats and the semifinals. She wasn't just a contender anymore. Wilma was the favorite. The gun fires. Wilma explodes out of the blocks. By the halfway mark, she's already ahead. By the 80-meter mark, this race isn't even close. She glides across the finish line, untouchable. 11.2 seconds. Gold medal. The fastest woman in the world. A young girl who once wore a brace on her leg had now outrun every single woman on the planet. Wilma wouldn't stop there. She would go on to win 2 more gold medals in Rome, becoming the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in a single Olympics. She was no longer Wilma Rudolph. She was a global icon. But unfortunately, we can't stay for the podium ceremony. There's another race we have to get to. Because 28 years later, another black woman was about to do something no one had ever seen before. Indianapolis, 1988, 100-meter semifinals at the U.S. Olympic Trials, lane 5. Florence Griffith Joyner, or Flo Jo, was a different athlete than she was in 1984. She wasn't running for silver anymore. She was running for history. She crouches in the blocks. Her nails, painted to perfection, rest lightly on the track. One leg is covered, the other one is bare. The world stares at her, not knowing what's about to happen.
Now she's moved down to 100, and she's one of the top contenders.
Gail Devers is in lane 4. Lane 1 is open. And quickly, Florence Griffith Joyner blowing away the field in a 10:49. Wind aided 10:49. Wait a minute. The anemometer says the wind was within the legal limits.
Cannot be. No one can run that fast.
10.49 seconds. A world record. A time so fast some refuse to believe it. A record that, as of today, has never been broken. But Flo Jo wasn't just making history with her speed. She was rewriting what a black woman in sports could look like. The long nails, the one-legged suits, the unapologetic beauty, strength, and power. And she wasn't done yet. Later that year in the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, Flo Jo would bring home 4 medals, 3 golds, and a silver. Oh, and get this, that gold in the 200 meters, it also came with a world record that, to this day, still stands. But for now, we need to get you to one last race, because redemption is on the menu. Budapest, 2023, 100-meter final at the World Championships, lane 9. Sha'Carri Richardson barely made it into this final. She had struggled in the semifinals, finishing 3rd in her heat and barely sneaking in on time qualification. She wasn't in the middle lane. Those lanes are reserved for the fastest qualifiers. No, she was in lane 9. No one wins from lane 9. But redemption arcs are never easy, are they?
Set. Women's 100 world final. The Jamaicans get out well. It's Sharika Jackson, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, Talu. Here comes Sha'Carri Richardson. Sha'Carri's done it. Sha'Carri Richardson has won the world title.
10.65 seconds. Redemption complete. Sha'Carri Richardson, world champion. The girl who had been doubted, dragged, and dismissed. The girl who had been written off, but also the girl who didn't write back, was now standing on top of the world, posting the 5th fastest time in the history of the sport. And in the following year of the 2024 Olympics, Sha'Carri blazed her way to a silver medal in the 100-meter final. But in classic black woman fashion, she wasn't done yet. Because in the 4x100-meter relay, with the United States trailing and the gold slipping away, Sha'Carri, running the anchor leg, put her country on her back.
Amy Hunt is making the exchange to Darrenina. Here comes Sha'Carri Richardson. Look to the far side. Sha'Carri's gold covered. All the way to the line. USA wins gold.
3 races, 3 different eras, 3 black women. Wilma ran for respect. Flo Jo for history. For Sha'Carri, redemption. But when the world saw them run, they saw black women in all their power, all their beauty, all their resilience. And in those moments, the world could do nothing but watch them fly. Let them know, Niecy.
And I'm ready, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Yeah. And I'm here to stay. I'm not back, I'm better.
After cementing her status as the fastest woman in the world, Wilma Rudolph did something truly unexpected. She walked away from the sport. She retired at just 22 years old with 3 Olympic gold medals, a world record legacy, and a determination to leave sports on her own terms. But Wilma was far from finished. Wilma took her talents back to where it all started, education and community work. She became a teacher and a coach, dedicating her time to inspiring young athletes, especially young black girls who, like her, were told dreams were impossible. But Wilma's true victory wasn't in Rome. It was in Clarksville, Tennessee. After she won the gold, she made sure her hometown honored her with a fully integrated parade, the first of its kind in Clarksville history. She was more than an athlete. She was also an activist. And unfortunately, Wilma Rudolph passed away in 1994 from brain cancer. She was 54 years old. Florence Griffith Joyner was more than speed. She was style, grace, and power personified. After retiring from competition in 1989, she pursued her other passions, Believe it or not, and I'm not making this up, she designed basketball uniforms for the Indiana Pacers. That's a true story. She became a children's book author. She even served on the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. But sadly, in 1998, we lost a legend. Flo Jo's sudden death in 1998 shocked the world because of how dominant she was. She was only 38 years old. Sha'Carri Richardson, the prodigal sprinter, the fallen star, the comeback queen. If 2021 was heartbreak, 2024 was redemption. After years of doubt, criticism, and being written off, Sha'Carri did exactly what Black women have always done. She came back stronger. But what's next for Sha'Carri? We can't say for sure. Maybe she'll dominate in the next Olympic cycle. They're actually in Los Angeles, and the storyteller in me will love some type of tribute from her to Flo Jo. Maybe she'll venture into fashion, media, maybe even politics. But what we hope, what we believe, is that she will inspire the next generation, just like Wilma and Flo Jo before her. Because see, Wilma ran so Flo Jo could fly, and Flo Jo flew so Sha'Carri could shine. And somewhere, right now, a little Black girl is lacing up her spikes, ready to carry the baton. And as we wrap up this story, it seems fitting to go back to Moushaumi Robinson, 2004 Olympic gold medalist, to let us know that when we see Black women on the track, to be reminded of what we are actually seeing.
The Black woman, the Black track and field woman who is out there doing it, whether she wins an Olympic gold medal or not, the moment she steps on that track and the gun goes off, although everyone else is watching her race, you're watching so much more by the time she's gotten to that line and she's gotten to that race. You're watching resilience. You are watching love. You are watching fear, but perseverance through it. You're watching excitement. You're watching belief. You're watching all the things that the human being experiences on life's journey, all in one race. And the most interesting part is the Olympic gold medalist that comes out of those group of women running. You've now seen the woman that what you didn't realize as you were watching her race, you are literally living through what it looks like every single day in her mind to push past life, being seen, safe, and heard, and winning. You don't know that that's what you're watching, but that's what you're watching. 8 of us go line up, but only one of us wins. And by the time you've watched the winner and you've watched her win, you have watched a life journey of valleys, hurdles, sunshines, rainbows. But most importantly, you've watched somebody overcome and battle through their own internal limiting beliefs to do such. That is what you've seen. That is what you see when you see a Black woman champion. You are literally watching someone every single day in the midst of the race push past her limiting beliefs. The Black woman doesn't always get to go and feel secure when she shows up to be a champion. We believe that. But you literally get to watch when a Black woman becomes a champion. If you're paying attention to the race, if you were able to be in her mind, you are watching her self-talk. You are watching what it looks like to be resilient. You are watching what it looks like to quiet the naysayers. You're watching what it looks like to find that belief in you. You're watching what it looks like to remember who you are by the time you have watched an Olympic Black woman as a champion. And that's what everyone should know.
And that is why Wilma Rudolph, Florence Griffith Joyner, and Sha'Carri Richardson are American women of speed. The Black is America podcast, a presentation of Owl's Education Company in collaboration with the UMA Collective Group, was created, written, researched, and produced by me, Dominic Lawson. Executive producer, Kendall Lawson. Cover art was created by Alexandria Eddings of Art Life Connections. Sources to create this episode include ESPN, CBS News, NBC News, Olympics.com, the Los Angeles Times, History.com, Biography.com, Tennis.com, LSU Athletics, TeamUSA.com, AfricanAmericanCollection.com, WorldAthletics.com, and more. For a full list, refer to the show notes of your podcast player or our website, www.blackisamericapodcast.com. Be sure to like, review, and subscribe to Black is America on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and let people know what you think about the podcast. We would greatly appreciate that. For a full transcript of this episode and other resources, again, go to www.blackisamericapodcast.com. There, you can read our blog, leave us a review, or leave a voicemail where you can ask a question and let us know what you think about the show, which we actually may play in an episode. Thank you for listening to the award-winning Black is America podcast, where our history comes to life. Until next time.